I I have the worst headache today. I have the worst headache today, but I am here. I'm here and I'm doing this doggone live. So, hello from North Carolina. This is our ninth live session. I can't believe I've done 9 of these already. Our plan is to go live every Tuesday at 10 a.m. to share industry news from the previous week. If you are joining us live, please drop a comment below so that we know you're here. That's our way of doing a little virtual mic check. If you are team replay, I dropped a link in the comments so you can watch this live replay at your convenience. What else do I want to say? I'm off today because I have a headache. I've got this cute headband on, but it's really serving a dual purpose because the squeeze is helping relieve some of the discomfort from the headache. So bear with me, please. All right. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Rosalinda Cruz. I am the founder and chief business development officer for the ACEWOR Collective. And we help underrepresented leaders in fashion with strategic planning and advising. Our mission is to support a more diverse and inclusive sustainable fashion industry by filling in the leadership and ownership gaps in the apparel supply chain. So on these lives, for those who are joining for the first time, I really try to reconcile my love of fashion and retail with my values around sustainability, diversity, and inclusion. I try to advocate for supply change and raise buyer awareness. So I feel like my signature line is, for those who don't know me, well, guess what? You guys are going to get to know me. You're going to get a fistful of Rosalinda. But I feel like empathy is my superpower. One of the things that that people have told me is that when I listen for understanding, which really allows for dialogue to be opened up. In the last couple of weeks, I have been talking about how I am actively practicing, right? Calling people in for conversation, right? So while I am very empathetic and a good listener, I feel like I too have gotten caught up in the wheels of calling people out. But in reality, I want to affect change, right? And calling people out isn't how that's going to happen. So I am actively practicing calling people in. So you're going to see that live in action. And I'm not sure exactly what that looks like. I'm kind of figuring out a little bit along the way, and I may stumble. So again, bear with me. But in our time together, what I try to do is cover North Carolina news, product, services, workforce, any epiphanies that have happened, and the green carpet. And so the green carpet tends to be people's favorite section or segment. And this is, I find, where I am probably most challenged with calling people in, right? Because the concept around the green carpet is it is sort of a segment where we discuss brands, concept ideas, what have you, that are being called to the proverbial carpet, right? And the green carpet for sustainability. In any case, so those are the things that I try to cover. And we're going to get to it. So a couple of things that I wanted to announce. I have been hosting these executive roundtables, which have been absolutely amazing. Our next executive roundtable is scheduled for January 19th. And essentially, I have representatives from the various links in the apparel value chain. And essentially, what we do is discuss various topics. The topic for our January meeting is really going to be reflecting on 2021 and how do we best prepare for 2022, right? And again, bringing a cross section of experts together um, to see if we can glean any insight based on each other's experiences. So there's that. I also made some updates to my website. I This time of year, I feel like I am always kind of entrenched in the planning work, but it's also a really great time for housekeeping stuff to happen. And I hadn't really taken a look at my website. And what else did I want to say about that? Yeah. So I made some updates to the website. Hopefully, it's a little easier to navigate. And I also opened up the wait list for our leader labs. So if you are interested in joining our leader lab, please use the link that I dropped in the comment. You can find the wait list on our homepage. So North Carolina news, I'm not even going to lie, guys. Um, and I'm gonna try, I'm gonna try to be better about not gendering people, right? So y'all, right? What? Yeah, y'all, but maybe y'all is better. I had been slacking this last week. I don't know what was happening. Maybe I was too entrenched in the planning work, but I didn't do um, my typical laps through social media inboxes and that sort of stuff. So I'm sure that there was some wonderful news about North Carolina. I didn't capture it. So I ain't got nothing to say about that. In any case, in industry news, Chanel. Chanel is in the news. I know that the last couple of lives I talked about how they were kind of getting some flack and were the butt of jokes because of their advent calendar. Um, and last week, actually, we talked about how Chanel is actually snatching up manufacturers and really trying to strengthen their supply chain. So that was news from 2 weeks ago, right? Last week, they announced that they are actually hiring their first female CEO and a fashion outsider to run the company. So she actually is the, I believe, the former CEO of Unilever. She's from Unilever. I don't remember what her title is. So that's really exciting, and I feel like I'm kind of excited to see what the future looks like for Chanel, given all of these changes. So Nordstrom in the news, they are apparently exploring options and rethinking their rack business. Apparently, they have engaged with a couple of consultants to rethink that portion of the business. So, interested to see how that sort of evolves. In product news, ThreadUp recently estimated that secondhand market is forecasted to double in the next 5 years and reach $77 billion by 2025. So that is really interesting. Like I'm always talking to various leaders in the fashion industry, and also entrepreneurs who are eager to get a line of product out there. But one of the things that I always say to them is that while people are excited to pump new product into the market, that there is a huge opportunity around the secondhand market, right? So whether it is with resale or upcycling, there's a lot of really great possibilities there. So I'll be keeping an eye on that too. December is Made in the USA month. I actually, my next newsletter is going to dig into this a little bit. But once I moved down to North Carolina, I started paying a lot more attention to Made in the USA product. And one of the things that I like to do when I am out and about shopping, which doesn't happen as often anymore, is to take a look at the labels and see where things are made. And it's interesting. And oftentimes I am hard pressed to find something that's made in the USA. Hopefully that's going to be changing because in service news, there is obviously there's been a lot of talk around supply chain issues, but one of the exciting things that has been discussed is how the focus is really shifting in the supply chain, and brands and organizations are focusing more on the resilience of their supply chain versus, as a friend of mine would say, chasing cheap. So I did mention last week that manufacturing is coming home, and they are predicting, or experts are predicting, that the strains on the supply chain are going to extend beyond 2022. And that's part of the reason why there's going to be more focus on supply chain resiliency versus, again, on chasing cheap. So companies are going to be bringing their operations closer to home. So yay to manufacturers in the US, and especially those in North Carolina. I am very excited to be able to play a role in that change. So, oh, this is an interesting statistic, which I did reference last week, but I wanted to share again. And doggone, this headache is really kicking my butt. Okay, so 75% of companies have said that they are going to be reshoring their operations and bringing their home bases, bringing operations closer to their home bases, or at least in neighboring companies. And this was a result in a survey from Bank of America, where they surveyed over 3,000 firms. So that's interesting. Also, I believe I touched on this last week too, but I feel like I got to say it again. But there has been a lot of talk around what the future of retail is. And they are seeing sort of this merger of old school and new school. And they kind of talked about this a bit when we have discussed sort of the shopping patterns of consumers, right? I think a lot of times, or initially, it was really being tagged as shopping behavior with Gen Z, but in reality, it's happening more across the board, where people are doing a lot of their research online, which is why a lot of digital platforms need to be robust and serve their customer needs. But when it comes to actually making the purchases, that's actually taking place in stores. So, you guys are getting me today. Oh man. In any case, so purchases, research is being done online, but the actual purchases are being done in the stores. And one of the things that customers are really looking for is great customer service, right? So there is going to be a return to sort of this white glove customer service, right? Think about couriers and pickups and all of that kind of stuff. So that is really really exciting. In workforce news, so last week I talked about how I'm really excited to see this sort of changing of the guards and having and seeing the shift in leadership, right? More millennials are coming into leadership roles, and behind them will be Gen Z. So one of the things that I'm really excited about regarding that is sort of like the emphasis on transparency, trust, autonomy, overall well-being, and values around impacting change in the world. So the reason I wanted to reference that is because McKinsey actually, I just got an email yesterday, so I'm on their list, and I totally went down a rabbit hole and nerded out over all of the juicy facts and statistics that they were sharing. But they are actually releasing a book about, or it's called CEO Excellence. And I believe it was written by three partners in McKinsey. And essentially, what they are doing is they have kind of taken a deep dive into what makes an excellent CEO. Um, and like I said, I totally nerded out over that, and I'm gonna go off script here and I'm gonna ad lib. But one of the things that really got me was that they had attended a workshop, which was, I believe, almost like a leadership retreat for CEOs, emerging leaders, that sort of thing. And it was a 3-day workshop, and every day they actually had a different CEO address the audience and talk about what it means to be a CEO. And every single CEO had a different answer, right? And some of them range from resource allocation and being on top of your numbers, and another was you were basically a cheerleader, and making sure that people are in the right place at the right time, and bringing out the best performance in other people, and the list goes on. So they decided that they were going to kind of dig into this deeper, right? There is no shortage of books on great leaderships or how to be a CEO. A lot of the typical right CEOs that we know already have books out, right? They if not multiple books, right? And so what this what they did is they actually started with a list of 2,000 CEOs, right? And they had a huge list of criteria. And they wanted to make sure that they accounted for a diversity of businesses, a diversity of leaders, a diversity of people, right? From, genders, as well as making sure that there was a cross section of people of color as well that were represented here. And they came up with 6 pillars that really define sort of excellence in CEO. So I am looking forward to reading that book. And yeah, I wanted to share that with you. So now we are at the green carpet. And I am being really quiet today because guess who still has a headache? This girl. This girl still has a headache, and this headband was helping, but it's not helping so much anymore. All right, so green carpet, we are here. This is where we kind of do a little bit of a deep dive and talk about brands, concepts, and processes that are being called to the proverbial carpet. And one of the things that I always really like to acknowledge, I think that it's important to acknowledge, is that um, the industry is full of ethical dilemmas, right? And yeah, that's all I want to say about that. And so I feel like the industry is full of ethical dilemmas, and that's something that I am always, again, trying to reconcile, right? This is where I'm putting into practice, right? The calling people in versus calling people out. So, and again, I wanted to thank Professor Loretta Ross, who's a professor at Smith College, for introducing me to this concept and helping to sort of trigger some new thinking around this. So, one of the things that has been coming up a lot is greenwashing, and there is a concern that there is that it's trending out there, right? So greenwashing is, and I wanted to talk about, right, the difference between greenwashing and misinformation. And this is something that Remake actually does a really, really great job of calling this out. So greenwashing is often about an omission, right? Whereas misinformation is more about false, inaccurate, misleading information, right? So most brands mean well, right? They believe their own hype and they're invested in their own success. So a lot of times, things they either fall into this either misinformation, right? Because they're believing their own hype and not doing their due diligence around things and citing sources and all of that stuff. But there has been sort of a call, like a call out happening around greenwashing. And I remember reading an article a while ago about how there's fear rolling through marketing departments and brands large and small now that, the lid is being lifted around misinformation. So it's interesting to see what happens when information is exposed. But speaking of information, one of the concerns that have been circulating last week is speculations around greenwashing with Shein. So Shein, um, apparently they just hired a head of sustainability, which has raised concerns from some people. I also want to acknowledge that, and I've said this many times before, that my belief in people's and brands' abilities to change isn't conditional, right? I think that any time is a good time to start. So, having said that, Sheen is, we go back to the report that Remake came out, Sheen scored a 5 out of 150. Now, I believe the highest score that was received was an 87. There were a lot of brands that were actually in the negative. But in reading their report, the Remake report specifically around Shein, they say, and this is like verbatim that I'm reading here, the ultra fast fashion brand seemingly came out of nowhere to take a top spot as a fast fashion giant, edging out competitors to become one of the least transparent. And I just wanted to go back. The least transparent companies in the world. Little is known about who is running Shein. and it publishes nothing internally about how the brand operates. It A recent investigation revealed that Shein's Chinese garment workers are toiling 75 plus hours a week with 1 day off a month and earning piece rate pay, which is in gross violation of local and international laws. So to make brands, they said to make brands disposable goods. Boy, this headache is really taking a toll on me. So it goes on to say that perhaps it goes without saying, Shein has no sustainability or workers' right commitment to speak of. Its makers are toiling 12-hour days for a company that some estimate is turning $15 billion in sales. So, given all of that, I understand why there are concerns regarding the recent hire of a head of sustainability. But we will be watching. I think that it's going to be hard to watch, though, if they aren't really public about a lot of the operations around their business. I know that there aren't a lot of regulations happening with their product, and yeah. So, in any case, I think I'm going to check out. I think I'm going to check out. This headache has gotten a lot worse. And hopefully I will be back to my energetic self next week. But I just wanted to say that are we almost out of time? Yeah, we are almost out of time. Almost at the half-hour mark. But so I'm going to be releasing a newsletter next week. My focus, I think, for next week, I know that I'm like a total process nerd, and I love strategic planning. So one of the things that I actually wanted to focus on next week was sharing sort of my planning cadence, and also just sharing, where people should be in their planning process and so on. I always like to say that it's never a bad time to start. It's never too late. So you haven't done your planning for 2022, you still have time to do it. And if you are needing some additional support regarding that, please feel free to reach out. That's part of the services that I offer. So again, I wanted to thank those who have joined and stuck around through the end. I just wanted to remind everybody that our mission is to support a more diverse and inclusive sustainable fashion industry by filling in the leadership and ownership gaps in the apparel supply chain. So thank you again for joining, and I will see you guys next week, and hopefully I will have a little bit more holiday cheer. Maybe not holiday cheer, just cheer in general, right? All right. Enjoy the holidays if you celebrate. Okay, bye, everybody.